Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of KFFB's Open Mic. And we do have, I guess we call it in office with us, Senator Tom Cotton. And Senator, thanks so much for taking time and talking with us. You were in Heber Springs, and we thought it'd be kind of interesting just to do that. We were eye to eye, as Dylan said. He said, I'd like to meet you. We always do stuff over the phone so much, but we have known each other in person, but usually we do it by phone. This is a great opportunity.
Yeah, it's great to be in person when Congress is not in session and I can be in town, be able to chat a little bit more intimately together about some of the issues facing Arkansas and facing our nation.
Now, one of the big things that we've talked about, I guess, is you've really been on a tour throughout Arkansas. You've said you're an Arkansan, you're going to talk about Arkansas, and you literally have been door to door and city to city.
Yeah, this month Congress is out of session, and I spent the first week of the recess at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland where I spoke. Since then, for much of the recess, I've been traveling all over the state, visiting with Arkansans, listening to them. I've particularly been visiting with law enforcement agencies. This week, I've visited with the Arkansas State Police, the federal prison in East Arkansas. Earlier this month, I visited with sheriff's departments and police departments. I visited with the Game and Fish Commission just to express my appreciation for what peace officers across our state do to keep us safe and the way they put their lives on the line every single day for us, because it's been a tough couple of years for law enforcement.
What do you think is something as Arkansans also is some way of the government can make it safer, not only for Arkansans, but for law enforcement as well?
Well, the first thing that I've heard from law enforcement officers is just the boost that they get when Arkansans simply say thank you, whether it's saying thank you, at church if you know someone is a police officer, or if you see someone getting lunch or picking up coffee and telling them that you appreciate the work they're doing. That makes a big difference. And then second, working with police officers, sheriff's deputies, and so forth in our communities. The vast majority of Arkansans are law-abiding citizens, and they respect and appreciate the police. Unfortunately, police officers often don't get to deal with those law-abiding citizens. They have to deal with the very small criminal element that threatens all of us. But they need our cooperation. They need our support and assistance to do their job.
Now, when you also talked about going back just a little bit, you spoke at the convention, Republican convention. What's really neat when you stop for that for a moment, there was a governor, also our attorney general, and yourself, and a few others, but you kind of were the main stage a little bit.
Well, I thought it was really remarkable that we had so many Arkansans featured prominently in prime time at the convention, and that's probably in no small measure because the Republican Party of Arkansas has a great story to tell. In just 6 years, we've gone from holding no statewide offices, only one seat in Congress, barely a third of our state legislature, to all 7 statewide offices, all 6 seats in Congress, 2/3 of the state legislature. Arkansans have entrusted Republicans to govern our state in a way that probably no other state has seen over the last 6 years. So I was proud to represent Arkansas and proud to speak about my family's history of service and how that reflects so many Arkansans' history of military service.
That's something when you see that in the big stage. I mean, when you looked at yourself, man, and it's really kind of whirlwind, really. I mean, you're on the main stage, wasn't it, a little bit?
It was exciting to be out there, but as Rudy Giuliani told me and a lot of the private citizens who were speaking that night as well, just remember, this is the easiest audience you'll ever have.
Well, I guess that's true. Well, tomorrow we're going to talk about the payments that were made to Iran, the whole issue there, and that'll be coming up tomorrow. So hopefully you'll stick with us here in our office.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of KFFB's Open Mic. We've got Senator Tom Cotton with us for day number 2. And Senator, thanks so much for taking time and talking with us.
It's great to be on with you.
It seemed like we've been hearing a lot about Iran, hostages, $400 million that were changed. It was a coincidence that was saying that there was hostages released when the money was on the ground. But all this is really documented.
It has been documented. The administration has acknowledged these payments. Back in January, on the day the nuclear deal with Iran was implemented, we exchanged $400 million, part of a larger $1.7 billion payment in return for 4 American hostages. And we just recently learned this month that the way that money was paid, it was paid in euros and Swiss francs that were stacked on a pallet and wrapped in cellophane and put on an unmarked aircraft and flown into Iran. I mean, that's the kind of stories that you read about from drug cartels or third world gun runners, not the United States government. And one of the hostages, a Christian minister who had been in prison for nothing more than helping spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, has said that they were delayed on the tarmac until another plane landed. And the State Department just this month has said that they in fact used the money as quote unquote leverage to release the hostages, even though Barack Obama has insisted all along that it's not ransom. Well, I think most Arkansans recognize that that's ransom, and that's what really matters, not what the president says, but what the Iranians think and what anyone else who would take American hostages think. And they all clearly believe that it was a ransom payment for those hostages.
I remember Ted Koppel's career began with the Iran crisis of the hostages, and they thought it was going to be a short time, and it turned out to be years, it felt like. Is it very similar to what we're seeing, really?
Well, the State Department just this week, ironically enough, issued a new advisory warning Iranian American citizens of dual nationality not to travel to Iran because they might be taken hostage. Well, of course they might be taken hostages because we've told the Ayatollahs that there's a $100 million per head price tag on Americans. And I know Arkansans of Iranian descent who still have family members in Iran, and they won't travel back there specifically because they have fears about what would happen to them because of their now American citizenship. And it is reminiscent of the hostage crisis in 1979 and 1980. It's a reminder that the Ayatollahs have been waging a war against the United States for 36 years. And that's not going to change as long as the Ayatollahs are in power in Iran.
Now, when you look also at Iran, you looked at the nuclear deal, and that was a bad deal in your opinion.
I thought it was a terrible deal, and Iran has violated the terms of that deal. They've continued to try to obtain dual-use materials from European nations that can be put to use in their nuclear program. They've launched ballistic missiles that violate UN Security Council resolutions associated with the nuclear deal. But even if they had upheld every single term of the deal, it would still be a bad deal because it would put Iran on the path to getting a nuclear weapon in just 10 to 15 years. And that's the blink of an eye in the life of a nation when we're talking about nuclear weapons in the hands of a regime that still chants death to America every week.
Now, when you look at the trade deals going on with Iran, have they opened some of that, I guess, opened up where they can trade?
Well, this is one of the reasons why the deal was so bad. Iran gets all the front-loaded benefit. So their oil sales are now back almost where they were before sanctions went into effect a few years ago. Their economy is growing at 6%, more than 3 times what the American economy is growing at. Yet they can walk away from their obligations under this deal at any time. So they get to pocket all the benefit up front, and they can still not uphold the terms of the deal as they haven't been doing.
What do you recommend that needs to be done at this point?
I think that we have to walk away from the deal first. They're not obeying it. It was a bad deal to begin with. We need to walk away. We need to reimpose sanctions. We need to make it clear to the rest of the world that stopping Iran from having any nuclear program whatsoever is the number one national security priority of the United States. And we have to make it clear to the Ayatollahs that we will back up that priority with the credible threat of force. I hope we don't have to use force, but there has to be a credible threat of force. Ensure that they don't pursue a nuclear weapon.
Thanks so much for taking time with us here on Open Mic.
Great to be on.